So it's now 1 p.m. Geneva time. I think we can launch the event as we have all our speakers with us. Excellencies, dear colleagues, welcome to this briefing on the first meeting of the open-ended working group for the global framework on chemicals organized with the Geneva Environment Network. The open-ended working group for the global framework on chemicals will take place late June at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Punta del Este, Uruguay, and is held back-to-back with another important meeting, the third session of the ad hoc open-ended working group of the Science Policy Panel to contribute further to the safe and sustainable management of chemicals and waste. We have a dedicated briefing next week to go through the preparations for that one. We are also hosting an additional session on the outcomes of the recent meetings of the Conference of the Parties to the Basel, Rotterdam, and the Stockholm Conventions to update member states and stakeholders on achievements that can be relevant for these two upcoming major negotiations in the chemicals and waste cluster. For those who are very new to the global framework on chemicals, for a planet free of harm from chemicals and waste, known also as with its acronym GFC, let me briefly remind you that it was adopted in September 2023 at the 5th International Conference on Chemicals Management, and it acknowledges the pollution and waste crisis as the third environmental planetary crisis alongside the crisis of climate change and the crisis of nature, land, and biodiversity loss. It complements the global deals that, I don't know why we have that slide, because it's about the science panels and not the agreements. It complements the global deals that set agreed goals on targets to tackle the triple environmental planetary crisis that humanity currently faces, as we have the Paris Agreement for climate change, the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework for nature, land, and biodiversity loss, and now the Global Framework on Chemicals for pollution and waste. We are joined today by the head of the Secretariat of this new framework and leading experts to update you on the preparations for the Punta del Este meeting. Before we begin, let me remind you that the documents presented, the summary, as well as the video of the event will be made available as usual on the webpage of this event. And for who is online, the link is being shared in the chat. For who is in the room, it's almost available on every slide. Throughout the event, those who are joining online can raise their questions by using the Q&A box. We will use these to feed the discussion during the Q&A session. The transcript is also available in over 100 languages for who is joining online, as indicated in the current slide. Today's session is moderated by Chaz Kaiser, who is in charge of communications at the Global Framework on Chemicals Secretariat. Chaz is joining us online, and we are delighted to leave you now in her hands.
Good morning from Maryland in the United States, and thank you so much, Diana, for that introduction and the background on the Global Framework on Chemicals. Again, my name is Chaz Kaiser. I'm a communications consultant with the Global Framework on Chemicals, and it is my pleasure to help moderate this session on the first meeting of the open-ended work group on chemicals for the Global Framework on Chemicals. Now, while this meeting is being called a meeting, make no mistake, this is a significant major milestone for the safe and sustainable management of chemicals and waste globally. And because of that, we have this briefing with now 120 participants online to learn all the information that you can about what will be offered at the OEWG. We have a strong lineup of speakers who will be sharing information about the OEWG, including the wide assortment of masterclasses, hybrid sessions, and workshops that will be offered. We have people joining in from all around the world. And of course, you will not be able to share your happy smiles and faces with everyone because we don't have the bandwidth. But because this is a global audience, I do think it's always helpful to kind of just get a snapshot of who's who. If for those of you who are joining online now, if you could just take a few moments to type in your name, your organization, and the country you are listening in from right now. And I would also like to note that in the International Environment House in Geneva, we do have people gathered together for this session because it is also in person, thanks to the Geneva Environment Network. All right, so if everyone could just take a moment to type in your name, your organization, and quickly just the country that you are in this huge world. Be grateful. All right, I see Mike Walker was quick to be the first person to type from Ireland. Thank you. And no, I will not read all of them. We have people calling in from Argentina. Okay, I hope that you will be in Uruguay. Germany. I'm trying to see who is the farthest. I know we have our comms people listening in from Nairobi. All right. So as we see, we have people just from all around the world. From what I understand, we're expecting at least minimum 500 people for the conference in Uruguay. And right now we have 140 participants listening. We have Bangladesh represented, Zimbabwe. I've always wanted to go to Zimbabwe, Egypt, and Ethiopia. Right, so you can keep those coming in. All right, so thank you. So we do want to go ahead and get started. Of course, it is appropriate that we begin with the head of the Global Framework on Chemicals, Ms. Kay Williams, who will give an overview of the OEWG, talk about its significance, of course. And then she'll be coming back on to talk about what I believe is her favorite thing, Multi-Stakeholder Day, because it's important to note that the OEWG will be offered not only in person, but virtually as well. All right. So Kay Williams, hello.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you, Diana, for the introduction, and good day to all of you, wherever you are in the world. So I would like to begin with an overview of the Global Framework on Chemicals that was adopted in Bonn in 2023. For some of you, hopefully this is a reminder. For some of you, this may be new, but the framework itself is multi-stakeholder and multi-sectoral, which means that it was agreed with those in the room having an equal voice from industry, from non-governmental organizations and civil society, as well as governments. So the Global Framework on Chemicals is different from any predecessor in that it has 5 strategic objectives, 28 targets, and was agreed with this multi-stakeholder setting in Bonn, where there was also a political declaration known as the Bonn Declaration, where senior level ministers and heads of delegations agreed on the urgency for action in this particular area of chemicals. Additionally, a fund was agreed, the Global Framework on Chemicals Fund, which has just completed its first round of applications. And this fund currently has around 28 million US dollars in it. And we're hoping to now see some projects being accepted by the board in the coming days. In terms of the significance of our work, I mean, chemicals are hugely important. 95% of manufactured goods are made up from chemicals. We have a unique approach because of this equal voice, and we also have quite strong participation by a number of international organizations known as the IMC organizations, which have been really stepping up to the plate and joining forces to make the implementation of this particular framework happen. The work is very much focused on implementation. We've been trying and working in this area for many years, and it really is time to start making things happen. We've done hard negotiations, and we're founding our work on what is known as global implementation programs. And you'll be hearing that coming up a lot during the course of the open-ended working group. We've also been doing a lot of work on understanding how to measure and report against the framework. And there are a number of activities that have been going forward in an ad hoc intersessional process on measurability, where we've been engaging not only some of the experts, but also policy officials to understand, and regulators to understand how we can truly assess the benefits of the framework and also the impacts that are happening on the ground. The operational trust fund now has this US $28 million. Thanks very much to the German government, who did provide a large proportion of that funding. And we will be receiving and notifying, I think, of the first projects that have been accepted under this fund towards the end of May. Other activities that we've been involved in have been looking at the costs of inaction, how to work with investors and look at some of the financial flows, and been having very good discussions to try and see how we can use finance and investment as a lever to make the change that businesses and others need to make to take action. In terms of the purpose of this open-ended working group, it will be the first formal meeting under the framework. It will be happening in Punta del Este, Uruguay, and I'm delighted that we will be going there in a few weeks' time. The aim will to be prepared for an effective implementation and a platform for the first international conference. It will be an opportunity for stakeholders to re-engage and to meet and to have new stakeholders come on board, especially through the options of having hybrid events, both during the lunchtime of the 4 days of the meeting from the 24th to the 27th of June, but also during a multi-stakeholder day, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. So this is the opportunity where we can align global action really on chemicals waste with some of the initiatives that have been happening at a national level and also a regional level. So with that, I'm going to close. We look forward to seeing you, and I'm going to pass on now to the next person in the agenda. Over to you, Charles. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kay. All right, so of course, this conference will be happening in Punta del Este. It is my pleasure, if he is online, to introduce Federico Gonzalez, Minister Counselor for the Permanent Mission of the Eastern Republic of Uruguay for the UN office, and to tell us about his beautiful city and what we can expect.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm pleased to participate in today's event on behalf of the Permanent Mission of Uruguay here in Geneva. My name is Federico Gonzalez, and I'm responsible for environment issues, among others, at my permanent mission. Firstly, I would like to sincerely thank the Geneva Environment Network and also UNEP GFC for co-organizing this briefing, and also to salute other speakers that are joining us today. So during my presentation, I will give participants a brief and concise overview of our preparations for the meeting as host country. At the outset, Uruguay is honored to host the first meeting of the OEWG for the Global Framework on Chemicals for a planet free of harm from chemicals and waste, which will take place at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Punta del Este, Uruguay, from 24th to 27th of June. It is also worth saying that this meeting is held back-to-back with the resumed third session of the ad hoc OEWG of the Science Policy Panel between 14th and 18th of June, and also an intergovernmental meeting to consider the establishment of the panel on 19th and 20th of June. The GFC OEWG meeting will be preceded also by a global multi-stakeholder workshop to develop a GFC implementation program for strengthening national chemicals legislation and institutional capacities, which will take place on 22nd and 23rd of June morning time. Also, there will be informal regional and stakeholder consultations, as well as technical briefings on measurability and indicators and on the GFC fund on the afternoon on the 23rd of June. As we can all appreciate, it's going to be a really packed agenda in a couple of days. And furthermore, regarding the preparation for these meetings, please note that it is our Ministry for Environment who is in charge of its organization, together and in close coordination with UNEP, with whom Uruguay and UNEP are meeting regularly in order to update and to conclude the preparations. We are happy to say that we're expecting the participation of more than 600 delegates from all over the world, ranging from government delegates, civil society representative, academia, the private sector, and the press. Also, it is important to all of you to check regularly the dedicated meeting webpage at UNEP's website, where you will find updated information on the logistics, including a document titled Information for Participants, where you will find all the answers related to your participation, such as registration, visas, accommodation, transportation, etc. To conclude, Uruguay will be pleased to welcome all of you and your representative to some very intensive days of meeting, and we sincerely hope your time in our country will be very well spent in terms of successful outcomes to advance the chemicals agenda. And finally, I will end my presentation by conveying our sincere gratitude to the donors who made these meetings possible. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez, for that update, and for noting that we do indeed have more than 500 people, 600 people scheduled to come to Uruguay for a packed conference. I do want to note for those of you who are coming online that we'll be saving question and answers for later, although please go ahead and start typing in your questions now and we'll be able to review those. I do want to also note that this session is being recorded and it will be shared with all participants after the session. All right, so as Mr. Gonzalez noted, we have a packed schedule. Here to give an overview of that schedule is Mr. Primislav Stepanek. He is a co-chair for the OEWG and the head of the Multilateral Relations Unit within the Ministry of the Environment of the Czech Republic. And he is, tell us where you're, I'm guessing you're in the Czech Republic, but just before you start, let us know where you're showing your face from. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jess, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with you at this online call. I'm here in Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. I'm at the Ministry of the Environment, so I was happy to be able to join this online briefing. And of course, I'm very happy to be able to contribute to this event with the information from my side. I was invited to brief you on the overview and purpose of the plenary sessions and also related events that are going to happen during the open-ended working group in Uruguay, Punta del Este. If I may, there is the, actually, I got only 2 slides, which is very simple. The first slide is showing the morning hours of each day of the meeting in Uruguay, and the second slide is showing the afternoon times. So basically, I like to go through the chronological order of all of this. So basically, we will be switching between those 2 slides. So first, as you can see, there will be the main sessions. Of course, the format of the main session would be in the plenary format. And basically, the plenary sessions would be running Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, as Thursday will be devoted to the multi-stakeholder day. And as Kay already mentioned, Kay will be talking about the multi-stakeholder day a bit later. So now I'm focusing on the plenary sessions. So basically, we would start the formal sessions on Tuesday, on the 24th of June, of course, with the opening plenary. And in the beginning, of course, there will be some organizational matters, such as the adoption of the agenda, the election of officers of the two co-chairs and the organization of work. And afterwards, we will go straight to the substantial work. So basically, the agenda items are building on the resolutions as adopted at the ICCM 5 in Bonn, at the International Conference on Chemicals Management in Bonn. So basically, the agenda items are related to those resolutions. So, for example, in the Tuesday morning session, you can see the implementation arrangements. It's based on the resolution Roman 5/8 adopted at the ICCM 5. So basically the main topics would be the implementation arrangements, global framework fund, gender action plan, financial arrangements, and also the program of work and budget. And then so this would be the morning session of Tuesday of the first day. And then during the lunchtime, there are planned the side events and also master classes. So the side events, those will be the sessions focused on specific topics, and the master classes, as I understood, these will be workshops that would enhance the understanding of participants on specific topics and issues related to sustainable management of chemicals and waste. So if we can go to the next slide showing the afternoon session of Tuesday of the first day. So we would continue the plenary, and of course, the plenary can decide about establishing of the contact groups. So we may envisage that there will be the contact group on the implementation arrangements, including the implementation programs. And also there could be, additional contact group slots as necessary. Hopefully, we will be able to manage our time as effectively as possible in Uruguay, because there will be a busy agenda, and we actually got only 4-day meeting, including, of course, as I said already, the multi-stakeholder day on Thursday. So basically, it's a 3-day meeting of discussions in plenary and discussions in the contact groups. In the evening, there is the schedule for the contact group on program work and budget. So if we can come back to the first slide now, you see the sessions for Wednesday. So again, we would continue with the plenary sessions on other topics. It's the Global Alliance on Highly Hazardous Pesticides. Another topic, very important, is the emerging policy issues and issues of concern. Then the international cooperation and coordination, also the national focal point guidelines, the measurability, structure and indicators, and health surveillance systems. Again, there will be during the lunchtime, the side event time, and the master class, this time focused on issues of concern. And if we can go forward to the next slide, afternoon. So you can see the other events in the master class on data transparency and traceability. Perhaps I forgot to mention that, as I understood, all the master classes and also the side events, they will be in hybrid format. So basically, it will be not only for the people in Uruguay in the conference center, but also other interested participants could be joining online. So already now on the website, there are the links available. So I think it's quite important for your preparations for Uruguay. Either you go there in person or you can join many of those side events and masterclasses online. So coming back to Wednesday afternoon time in plenary, of course, there will be the continuation of formal exchange of views on resolutions as necessary. And then the other contact group on emerging policy issues and issues of concern. Maybe I could also mention that besides the contact group, there could be also the breakout group on very specific topics. Of course, in every case, the plenary would be identifying the mandate of the contact group or of the breakout group. So that is clear that what should be reported afterwards, whether the work in the contact group or breakout group is done. So of course, then the plenary should get the appropriate information on the development, on the progress made in the contact groups or in the about the development in the breakout groups. There is also one more the contact group on emerging policy issues and issues of concern could be taking place also in the evening. Well, I personally I'm quite I'm not a fan of evening sessions, but we will see how efficient we will be able we will be in Europe, in Uruguay. So perhaps we can manage in normal times. And then, as I said, Thursday would be the multi-stakeholder day, so I leave it to Kay. And then we come to the last day. It's Friday, 27th of June. So we see the morning sessions is basically about it will be about the capacity building and also last but not least the preparation for international conference. As you know, the plan as was also envisaged in the outcomes of the ICCM5 conference, the plan is to have the first international conference on a global framework on chemicals next year in 2026. So basically, the open-ended working group also needs to to discuss the preparation for this international conference. When we go to the afternoon time, the second slide, please. Here you can see also the masterclass also on Friday, setting up networks for the GFC implementation. As I said, also in a hybrid format. And then we will come on Friday afternoon to the final plenary. Of course, closing business of the open-ended working group and the adoption of the outcomes of the discussions coming out of the plenary sessions and, of course, before that from the contact group sessions. So, and then the adoption of meeting report. Of course, I wanted also to highlight that all those works are related to the 5 strategic objectives, as already mentioned by Kay in her introductory remarks. So, the 5 objectives are contained in the global framework on chemicals. And basically, if I may ask for the first slide, yeah. So you can see those 5 strategic objectives in the upper part of the slide, strategic objective A, B, and C. It's Wednesday, D, Thursday, and Friday, strategic objective E. Basically, you have their main description also on the slide. So I think I have covered all the main points I wanted to emphasize: the plenary session, the side events, master classes, the contact group meetings, etc. So yes, I'm fully confident that we will have a good meeting of the open-ended working group in Uruguay, Punta del Este. I'm very, honored and pleased that the preparations are going well, and I just wanted to thank the host country for all the arrangements, and of course I also like to thank the GFC Secretariat, Kay and her team, for excellent preparations so far. So I'm very happy. I'm glad to see the preparations are ongoing on a good in a good spirit, and yeah, I look forward to meeting you all in Punta del Este. Thank you very much, and over to you, Chaz.
All right. Thank you so much, Principal, for that great overview of the OEWG and for noting again that parts of the conference will indeed be online so people can join anywhere. This includes Multi-Stakeholder Day, which is a special part of the conference on Thursday. As you also mentioned, people are hard at work preparing for this 4-day conference, which has a variety of sessions, including those organized by partners. And so next, we are going to have Kay Williams, head of the Global Framework on Chemicals Secretariat, talk about Multi-Stakeholder Day and provide an overview. And then we're lucky to be joined by people who will actually be leading workshops on that day, so you can hear why you absolutely have to attend their session. All right, over to you, Kay.
Thank you very much, Charles. So yes, the multi-stakeholder day is slightly unusual for the open-ended working group in having a sort of more informal opportunity as well as the formal opportunity of the plenary and the contact groups of the open-ended. So the purpose of the multi-stakeholder day is really to start making progress in terms of the implementation and the framework around what we are terming implementation programs. So we've been working extremely closely with the other IMC organizations to make sure that this builds on existing work and webinars that has been happening since the global framework was adopted. And we'll be starting off looking at some cross-cutting themes that have come up in terms of how we do implement the activities of the work that we're doing. So this ranges from understanding the priority chemicals of concern along to what does really chemical footprint approaches mean. I've mentioned before that we're really venturing now into the finance aspects, understanding about disclosure and reporting, which is something in the chemicals area we haven't really been doing, although this has been happening in climate change and in nature. And we're also really going to look at how do we take this green and sustainable chemistry, which many people have been working on for many years, how do we embed it along the supply chains, and how do we really make this happen in higher education institutions, as well as in industry, as well as I say, along those supply chains. In terms of data, extremely important. There's a lot of data out there, but is it transparent? Is it available? Is it accessible? And what happens to these data when they go down the supply chain? Can we really truly trace where they're going so that we understand what we have in our final products? So after that, we're going to be looking and then putting more of a focus on some areas which our community, and as well as others, are starting to begin the journey of the understanding. So chemical footprinting is something that is a concept that has been around for a while, but there are different methodologies. So there's going to be a look at that, as well as understanding, again, what does disclosure mean? What do we understand by financial reporting? We then got the youth who are going to talk about some startups. We're looking at a little bit about construction, some of the activity that has to date been focused on climate change. But of course, chemicals are hugely important in the construction area. How can we join other activities and make sure that that focus is taken into consideration when we are building, and we've got different activities in this whole area. And similarly, labour is really important as well. The exposure, every 30 seconds, there is a worker dying globally from exposure to hazardous chemicals. So that's a really serious problem. So we need to make sure that we address that. Now I'm going to pass over to some colleagues to give some more information, but we will in the afternoon then having a very dedicated space to 3 sectors in particular: the electronics sector, the textile sector, and the health sector. And I'm going to pass over now to colleagues. I think, are we starting online with Beatrice? Beatrice, would you like to describe a little bit more about what you'll be doing in your sector program? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So yes, indeed, let me share a little bit about what is expected in the session on the textiles. So the session is designed for us, we see it this way, it's designed with 2 clear goals in mind. The first one is to raise awareness of the importance of establishing a textile specific implementation program, of course, as well as share what the industry is already doing in the field. And the second part is to actively further co-develop the implementing program in line with achieving specifically target D6 for textiles, with the input and leadership of stakeholders from across the sector. So obviously, perhaps I say a few words like why textiles? It is widely known that the textiles industry is a high impact sector when it comes to chemical use. But while many initiatives and standards already exist globally, they are often fragmented in the way they work. So having said that, this event aims to bring those efforts together of the standards, the initiatives, under this JFC umbrella, helping identifying the gaps, avoiding duplications, promoting stronger and more coordinated action in this regard. So our session will take place in 2 parts. Session 1 is an hour and a half, and indeed it's a hybrid, so online and offline. And the first session will feature panelists from industry, governments, labor groups, standard bodies, sharing insights on sustainable chemical management across the value chain. And it will follow up by a Q&A session. This session is really to hear about real-world solutions that are already in place on sustainable chemical management in the textile industry. And we will talk about the broader vision for textiles within the JFC here. Session 2 will host several interactive workshops, indeed, with the same time frame, 1 hour, 30 minutes. So the participants will break into small groups to discuss key issues that the textile-specific implementation program should address. Topics are still being defined with stakeholders, but some of these could be certainly chemical traceability, innovation for safe alternatives, labor conditions, financing mechanisms, and key existing gaps that we need to tackle. The aim here, so while the first one, we are sharing solutions, while in the first session, we're sharing solutions already in place. In this session, the aim is to draft a clear structure and scope and vision for the textiles implementing program, which should, of course, be grounded in sector realities and priorities. So by the end of the event, we will walk away with 3 outcomes, hopefully. The first one, a better understanding of why sound chemical management is essential to sustainability in textiles. Clear input of what the scope and structure of the future textiles implementing program could look like. And 3, commitments from stakeholders to help co-develop and co-create and support the development of this implementing program under the JFC. So to wrap it all up, the session is an opportunity to shape global action on chemicals and textiles in a way that reflects the needs, experience, and ambition of the textile sector. And we would very much value the expertise of the participants on topics that I mentioned, among others, as we are still defining the topics, soon to be established. So we hope you'll be part of it, either online or in person. This is my 2 cents on the textiles implementing program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. And now I'm going to pass over to Oliver Wooten from Unitar, and he's going to talk a little bit about the value chains. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you very much, Kay, and to the GFC team, the Gen team as well, and thanks also to Uruguay, who'll be hosting us in a couple of weeks. Very much looking forward to it. As Kay said, my name is Oliver Wooten. I'm in the Chemicals and Waste Management Program of Unitar, but also one of the 10 IOMC organizations. So as mentioned, we've been showing our commitment, undertaking several efforts in trying to promote the GFC, actions under it, and indeed the implementation programs. I have a few slides, and I wanted to start with a little bit of background on the implementation arrangements and the birth of the implementation program. So back to resolution 5.8 from ICCM5, it invited the IOMC governments and stakeholders to collaborate on and develop proposals for implementation programs. Those proposals should address respective mandates, terms of reference, work plans, and other mechanisms. And there should be possible adoption at the next international conference in 2026, though this should not delay immediate stakeholder action. We've already heard some of that action, and we'll hear more. And reference to the value and dimensions of integrated chemicals and waste management, which is in fact reflected in the 3 implementation programs that have started to progress. We had an IOMC workshop in Paris back in February 2025. This was hosted at the OECD, and this was focusing on industry action along the value chains. The idea was to help develop the industry implementation program, but also address related GFC topics of relevance to industry. We now have the workshop highlights and key outcomes, and this is now posted online on the IOMC webpage with the web link there. The importance of that document is that it now helps us take the next steps with next steps and proposed activities for the thematic work streams. They're here in bullet point form, but you also saw Kay outline them in the multi-stakeholder day. So there is that continuity from the Paris workshop through to Uruguay. And I will talk a little bit more about the transparency and traceability. In our key outcomes document, we also identified a step-by-step approach to advance work under each theme, and this could involve knowledge sharing, identification of options or guidance to support implementation, and considering opportunities for coordination, alignment, and harmonization. So that was for the thematic work streams, but you'll also see noted the industry sector programs, which were also referenced: electronics, healthcare, and textiles. I also saw on Kay's slide activities on occupational safety and health and construction. And again, these were key themes that were identified previously, but also discussed extensively in our Paris workshop. So again, that continuity. For our multi-stakeholder session on transparency and traceability along value chains, this will take place in the morning on the Thursday. This is still being set up, but the general idea at this point is that we will have an introduction of past transparency and traceability activities. We want to learn from that, see what did work and what may need to change for the future. Current experience from stakeholders of transparency efforts and requirements in different sectors. Perspectives on what obstacles there may be and what stakeholders may be looking for. And then we will undertake some interactive sessions to try and get a bit more detailed information from the participants who are joining. So an interactive session on what information different user groups are looking for and what their needs are, and also a session on good practices and tools. We'll, of course, endeavour to do this with the multi-stakeholder, multi-sector nature in mind and in line with the Paris workshop outcomes, all looking to advance the topic. And then just briefly, while I can. I know it was mentioned earlier by Federico, but we also have an RMC workshop on Sunday the 22nd and the morning of Monday the 23rd, looking on or focusing on strengthening national chemicals legislation and institutional capacities. And specifically, the workshop will provide a platform to reflect on existing legislation and institutional mechanisms with a view to contributing to efforts for innovative approaches, and gather concrete input to inform the development of the IP1 to be discussed at the OEWG. Information has been shared about that online and through the registration process, so I hope as many of you as possible can join and keep in touch and in contact with the proceedings. Thank you very much from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And then I think finally, do we have Veronia online? I'd like to, yes, I'd like to introduce Veronia, who's from the World Health Organization, and she's going to talk a little bit about the healthcare implementation program. Over to you, Veronia.
Thank you, Kay. Yes, so thank you for the opportunity to just very briefly introduce our very active effort so far in developing this healthcare sector industry implementation program. And I'll tell you a little bit about the workshop that we have planned for Uruguay. Can I have the next slide, please? Yes, and next slide. Yep. So because our 78th World Health Assembly is actually meeting this week here in Geneva, I take the opportunity to highlight the 76th World Health Assembly that adopted Resolution 76.17 on the impact of chemicals, waste, and pollution on human health. And that assembly recognized and requested WHO to advocate for a multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approach to addressing pollution, including the health sector, both as a contributor to pollution and as well as its obvious role in working to identify, prevent, mitigate, and treat the health impacts of pollution. So next slide, please. So yes, so there are countless elements of GFC that are important and critical for health. So I will not go through this entire slide today, just to highlight a few of them. At the institutional level, there's new provisions that recognize the WHO chemicals roadmap to facilitate multi-sectoral engagement and the need for balanced representation on the bureau, national focal points, and other institutional mechanisms. There's a measurability framework, as you know, with targets and indicators that are to be developed. Some of them relate very specifically to health, such as the specific target A6 on poison centers, target B7 on monitoring and surveillance data, including a high-level indicator on the global burden of disease. There's actually another target E6 not mentioned here, but that's also very relevant to health on strengthening synergies and linkages with key environmental health and labor policies, including those on climate change, biodiversity, human rights protection, universal health care, and primary health care. So our healthcare sector implementation program fits well into many of these targets that are clearly health-centric. And you can also read about some other GFC elements important to health on the slide here. I won't go through them all. I'll just move on to the next slide and talk to you about our active efforts thus far in developing the terms of reference for this GFC implementation program, focusing on the healthcare industry. It began over a year ago. We've had a number of expert consultations, workshops, meetings, engaging our relevant partners and stakeholders. The first one you see there is the expert consultation that was held here in Geneva on the climate-resistant, environmentally sustainable supply chains in the health sector. That was followed by the IOMC Paris workshop that you just heard Oliver mention. And so we were also engaged in this forum to further develop elements of this IP. And then we recently had in early May, number 3 there, a technical meeting of our attached, very critical partner. This is the WHO hosted network, which is a fairly extensive alliance for transformative action on climate and health. It has probably almost 100 partners. And so that was continued the dialogue in our in that May technical meeting. And then later this week and early June, number 4 there, we're going to also engage our WHO Global Chemicals and Health Network of health ministries to get further input and make further progress. And then number 5 there, of which you are all invited to participate in, is the workshop that we will be hosting at the first OEWG meeting in June. And this will, as you've heard, have on-site as well as hybrid participation, where we will make further progress on this working draft terms of reference that we have been actively developing, ultimately with the objective of consideration and adopting at the 6th session of the International Conference on Chemicals Management later next year. So that's it for my highlights. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Varanya. I'm going to pass back to Charles now. Charles, over to you.
Thank you so much, Varanya, Beatrice, and Oliver, for sharing information on your sessions. As it has hopefully been emphasized, this is going to be a very interactive conference, and people will be able to join online, including our multi-stakeholder day. But there are also other sessions throughout the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, particularly during lunch, where people will be able to join online as well. I believe that there is a link directly to the schedule that is now in the chat box. And if not, well, it is on there, but you can also, of course, find the Global Framework on Chemicals website and see the listing of current sessions that are online. Again, we have multi-stakeholder days, master classes, and other sessions available. So thank you again for sharing information on those sessions. We have a variety of partners, of course, supporting the Global Framework on Chemicals because it is a collaborative effort. We have 2 in particular who want to share the importance of the OEWG to them and their activities leading up to the OEWG. The first I'd like to bring up is Yunyun Ismawati with the International Pollutants Elimination Network, which is also a member of the GFC Bureau. Hi, Yunyun.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, GFC Secretariat, for having me here. I believe my presentation materials there also are already available. Yes, so I'm Yunyun Ismawati. I'm the co-founder and senior advisor of Nexus 3 Foundation Indonesia. I'm also IPEN co-chair, just elected last August. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce IPEN for those who have not yet known IPEN. IPEN is a global network of public interest NGOs. We call ourselves public interest NGOs. And we are more than 600 NGOs in 131 countries. And I mentioned earlier that my position as co-chair is elected through the General Assembly. And this is the constituent of IPEN all over the world have a General Assembly every 2 years, every 3 years, to discuss various things, including the strategic direction of IPEN campaign. And most of IPENers, we call it IPENers or IPEN POs, participating organizations, are doing their works on the ground, supported by scientific findings and activities, and also driven by local priorities, advocated for it at the national, regional, and the global level to prevent harm from chemicals and waste. Next slide, please. GFC for us as stakeholders, preventing risks and protect our rights. So as stakeholders, we are risk takers, also profit makers, but we are also right holders. And many stakeholders have different rights that need to be emphasized and accessed. And GFC provide access to protection of rights, especially the right to live in a healthy and clean and safe environment, and then the rights to science, the right to know, right to safe and healthy working environment, and also the rights of indigenous people to participate and recognize in the development, especially on chemicals and waste. So this is an important non-legally binding instrument, but that's also support and contribute to enhance and uphold our rights. Next slide, please. And as experience and witnessing the development or the evolution of SAICM since the beginning of the establishment in Dubai, and also evolve into global framework on chemicals, we've seen that the global framework on chemicals are the concerted actions of countries and stakeholders. So ranging from labor's group, the consumers group, manufacturers, industry representatives, finance, they are all work together, and this is make GFC a unique approach or unique forum and platform. Although most of the programs or the issues of concerns are voluntarily have to be achieved by every country or multi-stakeholders approach, supported to achieve that target and supported sustainable development goals achievement. Next, please. So the issues of concern, if I have my reflections back from SAICM, there are a lot of issues of concerns. And then when we have GFC adopted, delegates try to make it a more concise. And now we've seen 5 issues of concerns that need to be addressed during this global framework on chemicals programs. 5 of them are PFAS, chemicals in products, highly hazardous pesticides, EDCs, and hazardous substances within the life cycle of electronic products. And this is an ongoing or the continuation of issues of concern from the past, when we identified, well, everyone identified and agreed that some chemicals need to be eliminated. Next slide, please. So SAICM and global framework on chemicals are a unique, as I said earlier, a unique approach, because that's the example of, there are a lot of examples of multi-stakeholders collaboration. And compared to other programs or approaches, we've seen many stakeholders are on the opposite side, but we have the opportunity to demonstrate through SAICM and the global framework on chemicals to work with industry side by side. And one of the examples is on lead in paint. In many countries, IPAN participating organizations are the drivers to change the policies and regulations on the elimination of lead paint. And this is also follow up by so many new regulations adopted in many countries. Happened because there is a strong multi-stakeholders collaboration. Next, please. And we learned from the Global Alliance to Eliminate Lead Paint, led by UNEP and WHO, that the certain issues that can be addressed or have to be addressed as a global alliance or global coalition. And we hope to see the highly hazardous pesticides global alliance can also learn from the global alliance to eliminate lead paint and take some lessons learned how to continue advancing the approach and collaborations between stakeholders to achieve the target, especially eliminating highly hazardous pesticides. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we've seen that it takes a meaningful engagement and collaborations between stakeholders to achieve a successful global framework on chemicals implementation. It is essential also to recognize that multi-stakeholders and multi-sectorals are not interchangeable terms, that both government and stakeholders or civil society are key actors that make it happen. In evaluations also, it was recognized that civil society plays various roles in countries to provide citizen science expertise, awareness raising, and the link or the connection between stakeholders. Next slide, please. That will be my last. So moving forward, we hope to see that the open-ended working group could apply and embrace the meaningful multi-stakeholders and multi-sectoral approach and ensure the participation of civil society through works on issues of concerns, as well as access to funding and implementation programs accommodated. And we can advance the global alliance to eliminate highly hazardous pesticides happen and adopted in this meeting. Thank you so much. Hope you have a successful GFC first meeting in Uruguay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yunyin. And yes, we will have a very successful workshop. Thank you so much. As Yunyin noted, and as it has been emphasized, there will be a wide range of stakeholders represented at the OEWG. This, of course, includes NGOs, government policymakers, academia, and industry representing various sectors. And of course, there will be youth, because we can't have an international conference focused on safe and sustainable chemicals management without youth represented. And to talk about the youth, we have Shannon Lisa, who is a big cheerleader for the Global Framework on Chemicals. Thank you for joining, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Chaz, and thank you very much for the opportunity to provide a brief update on youth engagement in the Global Framework on Chemicals. And of course, a big thank you to Geneva Environment Network and the GFC Secretariat for hosting this briefing. So the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform is the largest coordination space for children, youth, and youth-led organizations around the world working on chemicals, waste, and pollution. And we're now over 2,000 members, all youth across 150 countries. And we've continued to mobilize youth perspectives and action into the implementation of the GFC, following our active engagement at ICCM5, which we saw many of you there and hope to see again at OEWG. Reflecting back on ICCM5, I want to highlight the constructive and solutions-oriented contribution of the youth constituency to the adoption of the GFC. And this was the Global Youth Declaration on Chemicals and Waste. So we had a bond declaration and we also had a youth declaration. And this was presented at the high-level segment of ICCM5. It was the product of hundreds of young people sharing their collective priorities for a sustainable, equitable, and toxic-free world, where people and the environment are protected from the impacts of hazardous chemicals and waste. And this declaration includes 14 key demands, ranging from addressing the specific risks from exposure to children and adolescents, to integrating chemicals and waste issues in education at all levels. And it is serving as our youth roadmap for implementing the GFC. And the constituency has been contributing these priorities to the open-ended ad hoc group on measurability and indicators. And we see the OEWG1 as a real opportunity to continue to translate the priorities of the ICCM5 Global Youth Declaration into action, particularly increasing the sustained, meaningful, and visible engagement of youth in the sound management of chemicals and waste. And in preparation for the OEWG1, we have hosted several preparatory events designed for youth, by youth. Last month on 16th April, we hosted a youth briefing on the 2025 UN Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution negotiations, which brought together youth as well as the secretariats of the BRS conventions, Minamata Convention, Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution, Science Policy Panel Secretariat, as well as the GFC Secretariat, to have a dialogue on the linkages across these processes this year and to provide an entry point for youth to engage in key issues on the chemicals and waste agenda that matter to them. And the recording is available on the Geneva Environment Network website for those interested, and we thank Jen for their support with that session. We also had the second edition of our Youth Forum on Chemicals and Waste just this last month at the BRS COPS on April 27th. And it was under the theme of making youth solutions to pollution visible. And we were grateful to be joined also by the GFC Secretariat on that event. Thank you to Kay Williams. We had an intergenerational panel where youth learned more about the progress made since ICCM 5 and the key priorities heading into the OEWG 1 negotiations. And other workshops during that forum were focused on developing a children and youth engagement strategy or action plan for the chemicals and waste policy instruments, as well as financing the sound management of chemicals and waste and youth innovation through a dialogue with the Global Environment Facility. And following on this theme of innovation, we have a youth event planned for the OEWG 1 on youth education and innovation for sustainable chemistry and zero waste. And this session will bring together youth leaders, government representatives, UN system entities, and industry and academic voices to reflect on how young people are shaping the future of chemicals and waste governance from both the classroom to creating real world solutions on the ground. And we plan on hosting a Youth Pollution Solutions Showcase, which will be a Shark Tank style pitch session to raise visibility on youth-led projects in sectors like health, textiles, and agriculture. The exact date and timing during the week of OEWG 1 will be announced soon. And we look forward to engaging with many of you in Punta del Este next month, with over 50 youth delegates expecting to be on ground from every region of the world. And we're very grateful to the partners who have supported youth participation thus far. We very much appreciate continued and expanded support, particularly through funding for youth travel grants, because financial barriers remain one of the most significant obstacles to inclusive youth engagement, especially for youth who are the most impacted by hazardous chemicals in LDCs, SIDS countries, and those from waste picker, informal recycling, or smallholder farmer backgrounds, for example. And we warmly welcome collaboration to develop youth-focused educational resources, technical training opportunities, and meaningful participation in national implementation processes. And to conclude, the GFC is the world's promise for a future where young people and all generations can thrive, free from toxic harms. Youth are already helping to deliver this vision. What we need now is sustained engagement, intergenerational partnerships, and support to scale our work. And we very much look forward to working with you all at OEWG 1 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Oh, Shannon, I wish I was a kid again so I could attend the Youth Pollution and Solution.
You're
Thank you so
welcome,
much.
please.
I know I'm going to underage myself so I can come. And thank you for noting that the GFC is the world solution and you are a part of it. And everyone who's going to be in Uruguay will be a part of it. All right, so Shannon is actually capping off and very appropriately the information provided from speakers and organizers for the OEWG. Thank you everyone who has spoken on behalf of the GFC and provided information on their sessions. We're now going to go ahead and go with questions and answers. As we've been talking, people have been typing questions into the chat box. You can continue to do so. Kay Williams, head of the Global Framework on Chemicals, will be able to answer questions. And then there may also be some for those who have led sessions. I do already have some that have been coming in. Kay, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, so I'll just say this again because one of the questions that kept coming up is, will the conference be offered virtually? And I can answer for you. Yes. People will be able to join parts in person, obviously, and online, particularly during Multi-Stakeholder Day.
Yes, so just to clarify, the plenary sessions will not be streamed or they won't be hybrid. unfortunately. But all the interactive sessions where we really are expecting that wider multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approach, they will all be hybrid, and those links are available and they will be open access. Thank you.
Yes, all right. You just have to click on them and you are good the day of. Diana, if you could you bring up the OEWG schedule, because there's a couple of questions about the schedule. So it might be helpful, as Kay is talking about it, to just people be able to reference it online. One of the questions is, what's the difference between contact groups and breakout groups?
Very good question. So a contact group is it's an informal group, but it's a more formal group than a breakout group. So it's usually if there's in a plenary session, I think if the co-chairs feel that there's quite a lot of interest or an exchange of views, then there could be a decision taken to go into a different setting and have further discussions about a topic that will have been raised in plenary through one of the working documents, which are all now available in the pre-session document tabs on the website. A breakout, we're using the term breakout group for those topics which have, in fact, their own intersessional process and their own subsidiary bodies, to try and retain the integrity and independence of those particular bodies and the decisions that they can take under their terms of reference. So specifically for measurability, we are terming any discussions. We understand that people do want to discuss the measurability work and indicators, and aside from a technical briefing, which will happen on the Monday, they could be, if there is sufficient interest, the co-chairs of that intersessional ad hoc open-ended working group for measurability will be able to meet in person should they wish to have any feedback, any commentary, any discussions, any greater understanding of the work that is happening in that subsidiary body process, that intersessional process. So anybody's welcome to join the work on measurability, but it's a separate process to the open-ended working group one itself. So we wanted to keep the integrity of that process. Similarly, for the Global Framework on Chemicals Fund, there is a subsidiary body, an executive board that has been set up with terms of reference, and that has its own mandate, and it will be looked at to put forward proposals towards the international conference. The co-chairs again will be present in Uruguay. Should there be, I think they may welcome having some informal discussions on those terms of reference, and there will be opportunities, should the participants of the meeting wish, to have those informal discussions with those co-chairs. So contact groups are a little bit more formal, they report to plenary, but the informal groups, I think, the breakout groups are sort of more informal. And I hope that's okay. And I'm sure some legal person will tell me I've got it completely wrong, but that's my current understanding. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kay. Another question regarding the schedule, but also outcomes. The schedule says adoption of final resolutions. When will we'll be working on? We'll be working on amendments to the existing resolutions, or will there be new resolutions adopted, Kay?
Yeah, so this one is, so we've got working documents, and we'll be making, it's an interim stage. So it's if the conference wishes to put forward a resolution to the international conference, that will be decided in the plenary at that point. This is more, we're seeing the open-ended working group as a much more of a technical progress checkpoint, if you like, so that if there is anything that is ready to be adopted or make recommendations to the international conference, that can happen on the Friday.
Okay, thank you. Another question, will there be a scenario note, and when might this be available?
Yes, there will be a scenario note, and I am drafting it at the moment.
Among many other things. Yes. All right, thank you. Another question, how will the results of the workshops be conveyed at the meeting plenary?
So that's a very good point. Yes, we will be having note takers during the especially the multi-stakeholder day. I think it's very important that we capture the ideas and the activities that are potentially proposed. The main point of all the work that we're doing isn't that this work is an end to itself. It's part of the journey that we're on in terms of progressing implementation programs. So again, we're 18 months ahead of the international conference, which is quite unusual in having such a long period before that conference, and there's an opportunity to make further progress. So anything that's coming out of the multi-stakeholder day in particular, that we anticipate will be able to report back to the plenary to be able to have something that we can attach to the meeting report. Having said that, I think we're also hoping that each one of the sector programs will be able to generate and build on the suggested activities that came out of Paris, and be able then to make some arrangements to be able to take forward their work in the intersessional period ahead of the international conference.
Okay, thank you, Kay. This briefing has primarily been focused on the Tuesday through Friday of the event, which is open to anyone, but some people will also be attending the IOMC workshops, which we really have not covered. Can you just give a little background on the IOMC workshops? I see you pointing it to Oliver, please. And then some people want to know how will they know if the registration has been accepted for the IOMC workshops?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the workshop is split in two. So the Monday morning, if I start with that, is going to be hosted at the conference center where the OEWG is. So that has much larger capacity, and in essence is open to all. Anyone who's available to come on the Monday is welcome to do so. The Sunday is a little bit more complicated. We'll be hosting that at a hotel with more limited capacity. So we are currently with the wonderful support of the GFC team and other colleagues involved in travel for the different events. We're coordinating on who will be there in Uruguay, who will be there a day early, etc. So that is still going on. That said, we are hoping to start informing participants this week whether they have been accepted and are invited to come on the Sunday to join us then. So hopefully, in the next week, we'll be letting people know. Just to add a little bit about the sort of hybrid streaming option, we're currently planning to not have it fully hybrid. We will try and stream events for those of you who would like to follow on a Sunday, so that there is that ability to follow on from further afield, but it won't be fully hybrid. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Kay, is there still time for people to get sponsored for the OEWG?
If you mean funding for travel,
Yes.
no, I don't think it is possible.
We're very close to the date. Thank you. I have a question about the fund. It may be a little bit hard to answer within this time frame, but someone wants to know which of you would be able to speak to how the GFC fund will be allocated, okay? And what details on the fund allocation will be discussed at the OEWG?
Okay, so in terms of, I think, details of fund allocation, I don't think that will be necessarily discussed, but I've got two people in the room, actually Eduardo Petit, and he can be able to, I'll pass over to him to answer the question on the fund. Thank you.
Yes, hello. On the question on the new GFC fund that was established along with the Global Framework on Chemicals, as Kay mentioned, we have received already pledges for up to $28 million. And the fund already launched a first round of applications, which started in October 2024 and closed in January 2025. And there were a large number of applications received, up to 105 applications from all the different regions, so it has attracted global interest. And the executive board is the decision-making body of the fund and is the one that takes decision on which projects will be funded. For this first round, because of the large number of applications, the executive board met in March, but decided to reconvene again at the end of this month to make the final decisions on which projects will be funded on this round. However, there is already preparations for launching a second round, probably at the end of this year, and this will be another opportunity to receive further applications. In broad terms, the fund is created to support developing countries and especially least developed countries and small island developing states to implement the framework. So the scope of projects goes around the 5 strategic objectives and 28 targets that are included in the framework. For further details on the selection process, but also on the second round of applications, I would invite stakeholders to join to visit the UNEP website, where more information on the fund structure and on the priorities is already included. And there are also the guidelines for applications for the first round, which will be revised for the second round. OEWG will offer as well an opportunity to discuss on the fund. Particularly, there will be a technical briefing on the 23rd of June, so one day prior to the beginning of the OEWG meeting in the afternoon of 23rd of June. And this will be an opportunity for more information on the outcomes of the first round of applications, but also on the lessons learned, and as well as some words from the co-chairs of the executive board on how they see the way forward and the next launching of the second round. So I would also take advantage of this opportunity to invite stakeholders to look at the agenda for further details and come to this technical briefing where more questions will be answered on this regard. And if you have specific questions as well that you'd like to raise before the meeting, we also can give you the email address of the fund. Will be posted on the chat right now so that you can also forward any queries that you may have in this regard. Thank you, Kate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. Right now, there's been a couple of questions coming in regarding information that is on the Global Framework on Chemicals website. I just posted a link. Right now, if you go, you'll be able to see the current sessions that we have planned for Multi-Stakeholder Day, as well as lunch events, and it is noted which ones are hybrid and which ones are not. And there are direct links that you can use the day of to be able to join. There is also information on, there's the schedule that you saw that was used for Prim's slide and for Kay's slide that shows a broad overview, and more information will come as well. Kay, we have another question. Is it anticipated that formal text will be negotiated and adopted in the contact groups in plenary? If so, which ones?
Sorry, could you just repeat formal?
Of course, yes. Is it anticipated that formal text will be negotiated and adopted in contact groups and plenary sessions? And if so, which ones? I think you touched upon this earlier.
Yes, so if you look at the working documents that we have, many of them are really about next steps and trying to, they're fairly brief, and they're just really trying to give a steer on the next steps. Yes, the contact groups will be there should there be a requirement to put in to have some more formal negotiations, which would then go back to plenary. There will be the program of work, which I envisage that we will have some formal discussions and negotiations on that program of work, although in fact until 2026 it has been agreed, hasn't it, Jose? I think the resolution ICCM 5 has actually agreed, I think, the financing up till 2026. That's correct. So it's really a staging post. So we're just giving an update of where we are on the financing. So theoretically, yes, it will be an opportunity for us to negotiate and then put a recommendation, my understanding, a recommendation for the international conference.
Thank you so much. There's questions related to the implementation programs. Oliver or Kay, could you please just explain what the implementation programs are and how you're in the process of working on them with other stakeholders?
Thanks. So just perhaps linking back to my slides and also previous work. So the IOMC at, I think, the Bucharest meeting, so one of the intersessional process meetings, prior to ICCM 5, introduced the concept of integrated chemicals and waste management. So there were 3 dimensions to that, essentially national legal systems, industry engagement, and integration in sustainable development issues. Those 3 were discussed, including in 2 IMC workshops in 2023. And then in the ICCM 5, there was a resolution that adopted implementation arrangements and encouraged the formal development of implementation programs. So you will often hear IOMC colleagues refer to implementation programs 1 and 2. And the third is on sustainable development issues, which we haven't progressed as far on. And the idea is that they are there to encourage action and achievement against the 5 objectives and the targets. There are specific targets that are perhaps of most direct relevance to these implementation programs, but the idea is to generally support all of the objectives, all of the targets, work with all stakeholders, that is those involved directly in the GFC, but also importantly bring in others. So for example, implementation program 2, we talk about all along the value chain. Many of us acknowledge that we've worked well with the chemicals industry, chemicals association, but perhaps have not got along the value chain as far as we want. So it's a key avenue for bringing in what we might call new stakeholders as well, with the idea of enhancing action. And we are currently undertaking activities. We've been doing outreach on webinars, these workshops, and we hope to progress in terms of reference and developing a mandate. And that is with all stakeholders involved, not just the IOMC, though we have accepted the invitation to co-lead this process. And hopefully at the international conference in 2026, they can be adopted and we can more formally move forward on these programs. I hope that helps. Thanks.
It did help. Thank you so much, Oliver. Another question relating to one of the sessions. Now we have a variety of sessions, and it may not have one that specifically has this topic as a session. But Kay, the question is, will there be a session at OEWG on building synergies with key relevant MEAs like the UN Plastics Treaty and Basel Stockholm Conventions, or something related to that? Will there be a session at the OEWG on building synergies with key relevant MEAs?
Okay, so we will have working papers on international cooperation, which will have talking about synergies with other MEAs. In terms of implementation programs, as Oliver was saying, the third one is really to be focused. The third track, that implementation program, is slightly behind some of the other implementation programs, but that will be an opportunity again to strengthen those interlinkages. So I believe there'll be an opportunity to discuss this under the international cooperation working document.
Thank you, Kay. Another question, is it possible to know which department or ministry from the party's governments will be joining the OEWG? Like, will there be an official list of policymakers, government representatives at the OEWG?
I believe that everybody that has registered and that attends, their details are published.
Are published, okay.
We will not be publishing those that join online. I think that's
Okay.
correct. But just everyone that's in person, their contact details are published.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we have 5 minutes left. We are coming to a close. Kate, thank you so much for the Q&A. Thank you to all of our session leaders and all of the speakers. Thank you, of course, to the Geneva Environment Network and Diana and her, looks like a fairly large crew running this. Thank you so much. Kay, if you would come back online and give closing remarks.
Well, fortunately, we've run out of time, but I just want to say, look, I really hope that you will engage with us in Uruguay. I'd like to thank the Gen Network again. I'd like to thank yourself, Charles, and everybody that's been involved in the preparations to date. We're looking forward to an exciting meeting, and hopefully will be a very positive spirit following the Science Policy Panel negotiations that just precede our work. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much and look forward to seeing some of you in Uruguay.
All right, bye everyone, and thank you.
Dear colleagues, let me just take this opportunity as we have just closed this event just to announce to thank, of course, all the panelists and all those who have joined us online or here in the room or who will be later watching the video of this event. To remind you that we have a few other events upcoming and some others that have already taken place that you can rewatch online, including the one on the preparations for the other Open and Working Group meeting in Punta del Este, the SPP, that took place during the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention's Conference of the Parties as a side event. Next week, we are having 2 events, one on the outcomes of the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention's meetings that took place in Geneva, with the outcomes that are relevant for the 2 meetings happening in Punta del Este. And then we have a briefing similar to this one on the preparations for the meeting of the ad hoc Open and Working Group to establish the science policy platform on chemicals and waste and pollution to prevent pollution, their resumed session of the third meeting. So we look forward to see you there or for you to rewatch the videos online because everything is streamed and then available. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all.